I'm honored to be joined today on the podcast by longtime NFL and college coach, Ron Turner. Coach, it's great to have you here. I appreciate you taking the time.
No, thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on.
So, Coach, 41 years and a game that means a ton to you, but also is just huge in your family with, your brother coaching, your son's coaching. I guess before we get started, just talk to us about, this game and what it's meant to you, what it's done for you.
Well, it's done everything. I'm so blessed to be able to be in this game for 41 years. And I always tell people it must have been pretty good if both my boys are, follow the path in their coaching. So, but it's been, tremendous experience, a lot of moves and some of that, which isn't for everybody. But it's been, there's nothing like it, the competition of game day and the preparation leading up to it. But the biggest thing I think is what the impact you have on the players, the impact you have on the young guys you're coaching, off the field, as much as on the field. And, that's really what it's all about. So it's a special thing. And we as coaches impact the student athletes we're coaching probably more than anybody else other than maybe their parents, or a close family member or something, more than teachers and everybody else. So it's an honor, to have done it.
Coach, you said after the 2017 season, you stepped away from it. You were working as a consultant with the Panthers, and now your opportunity is to watch your sons coach this game. What's your favorite part of that?
Well, just watching it as a fan, and also, somebody that knows a little bit what they're doing and what they're going through. It's just great to be able to be a part of it, to watch what they're doing and the effort and the work that they put into it. Same thing. It's just great to be a part of something that's so important to them. And this year's been tough because, you can't get out. You can't get out and go to any of their games or see anything. I usually make the trip out west, the West Coast, go to Phoenix for my son game, who's with the Cardinals, and go to some of his games, and then go to Stanford where my other son is and watch practices and watch the games and talk to them and, sit in some of the meetings sometimes. And it's just, it's just great to be a part of what they're doing with their families.
With these trying times and something that's, different than anything we've ever faced before, certainly affecting a lot with how you prepare for a season, how you prepare in an individual week. Did you offer any advice, or were you able to help your sons in any way as they went through all these challenges?
Yeah, we talked about it, definitely. And I'm not sure if I did offer advice. I'm not sure if some would say listen, but I think they did. And basically what I said is, it's going to be the people that adjust. Don't complain about it or anything else. You adjust, you move on. Everyone's going to be is going to be not comfortable with it. They're going to look at it and say, well, this and that. And they're going to complain, but it's the ones that say, hey, it is what it is. Let's move forward. And as a coach, that's what you're doing on game day. You're adjusting constantly to what they're doing. During the week, you're adjusting. And it's what you got to do in the off season. It's there. So there's no reason to complain about it. Go make the most of it, and allow yourself to prepare and compete at a high level. And that's really the only advice I told them. Just embrace it and move forward. It's the same for everybody.
Because for somebody who's really been able to coach all over the country, and you've had a number of stops at a number of different levels here, what were your biggest things I think you learned, especially early on, as you started to make some of those changes and move up the coaching ladder and, face these different situations you were in?
I think probably the biggest thing that I learned is to be yourself. And this is what I'm going to talk about at the clinic that I'm doing at high school in Illinois, high school clinic, is, be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. And I've seen that. I've seen guys, all of a sudden now they're a full-time coach, or they're a coordinator, or they're whatever, and they change. Their personality changes. They're trying to be like maybe the guy that was their mentor, or they're trying to be, a hard ass, but that's not their personality, whatever. You just got to be who you are. The players will see through it if you don't. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I learned, just be yourself, be true to yourself, and develop a philosophy. I've seen a lot of coaches that don't really have a philosophy. They're all over the place, and develop a philosophy. And my opinion is you have to have strong philosophy in how you want to do things, how you want to teach it, schemes you want to run, everything you want to do, something you really believe in. But to a point, you still have to be flexible. You still have to adjust. You still have to adapt to changes. But you can do that without compromising, what your beliefs are, what you believe in, integrity, and everything else that you go with. You can adjust and still do that. I believe that very strongly. But you have to have that. And like I said, I've seen guys that don't.
Mm-hmm. With in your early years of coaching, you mentioned your mentors. Who were the mentors for you, and what were some of the things you learned that really became part of your philosophy?
Well, I think I was fortunate to be around some good coaches, some good people, when I was younger, and also some bad ones, so some people that you learn from as well. The biggest thing I tried to learn, and it's advice that I got when I first started coaching, I was at the University of Pacific in Stockton, California, and Coach Chester Caddis, the late Chester Caddis, was the head coach, and I played for him. Then I became a GA, and I learned a tremendous amount from him. And he told me, when I did, he goes, learn, just try to learn something every day. And I did what I did when I was there, even as a GA. I put myself in the head coach's shoes or the coordinator's shoes, and I watched and I observed and I took notes. And, things that they did that I really liked, that I agreed with philosophically, and the way they handled situations, and also things that I didn't. I said, I'm not sure I would have handled it like that, and you try to learn from that. And Dante Scarnecchio was on that staff, the legendary coach, offensive line coach in the NFL, mostly with the Patriots, for so long, was on that staff. And I learned a tremendous amount from him, X and O wise, technique wise, but also philosophically, the right way to do things. And, so that was huge from those coaches. But there's been so many. Ted Tollner, was the head coach at USC when I was there, learned a lot from him, and the people on that staff. My brother Norv, we never coached together, but just talking ball with him and watched how he did things, learned obviously a tremendous amount from him. But there's been so many. Denny Green, the late Denny Green, a major influence on me. I coached for Denny at Northwestern. I was a quarterback receiver coach when we went to Northwestern, and in the midst of a 20-something game losing streak, which, by the way, we extended for a little bit before another season, and then before we started winning. But Denny Green was a huge influence on helping me establish my philosophy of offensive football. He came from Bill Walsh and the West Coast system, and that's really where, my foundation was. But so much from Denny Green. And then I went back with him at Stanford for 3 years as his coordinator, and again, continued to learn. So Denny is up there as, the top of the list as far as, mentors for me and guys that I've learned so much from. I mentioned Ted Tollner, Joe Moore, the legendary offensive line coach from, Pitt. I was on that staff. I was quarterback coach on that staff. But watching Joe and saw so much about line play and blocking schemes and the importance of, attention to detail and techniques and fundamentals, and that, also learned a great deal from, Dave Wanstead. I was with him with the Bears, which was tremendous. So it's been so many of them, and a lot of assistant coaches too that I worked with. Too many to name all of them. I'm leaving out a lot of great names there, but I tried to learn from all of them and go with the lessons that Chester Caddis told me. Again, learn from everybody, and I did. Again, good and bad.
Coach, I think today, with the way technology works and the ease of getting information, our young coaches can learn a ton. We've seen that over, especially during the pandemic shutdown. All kinds of coaches getting online, learning from each other, and boy, there's so many good ideas out there, and especially for that young coach who looks at everything and everything looks good. How do you start to figure out, this is what I need to be, this is the offense I'm going to learn? How do you, narrow that focus so that it's going to be effective, right? I think that's probably a big challenge today.
Yeah, I think it is probably more so because of the technology, like you said. But I think it's always been. Like I said, coming up, the first thing I said is you have to have a philosophy, establish what you believe in, and so you see different schemes, you see different things, which one fits you and your personality and your beliefs and how you want to, run the program is critical. And like I said earlier, a lot of guys don't really establish that. They're all over the place. And like you said, with technology, it can even be worse because they see this, they see that. And I've been around guys that game plan like that. They watch somebody have success on a play, and, they might see 10 of those things. They go put them in for the next game, but none of them tie into what they're doing and what they've done and what they've taught their guys in training camp and everything else, So to me, you have to be careful. I think it's always good to do some of that, but that you've got to be careful that you don't do too much of it, in my opinion. But you have to just, again, what do you believe in? What works for you and what you want to do is the biggest thing. And I've also been around a lot of guys that, because of the technology, they have access to everything. They're watching everything and all the analytics, which I think are tremendous. I'm a big fan of that to a point. But some of these guys, that's all they can do. They can get on the computer and do anything they want to do. But then I watch them get in front of a group and try to teach it, and they're not very good. I'm like, wow, because they don't understand the depth of it. They're not very in depth of what they're doing. They know a little bit about a lot of stuff, but when they go to teach it, it's terrible. That's the biggest thing I would stress to young coaches is, do what you can to get in front of people and teach it and understand it and communicate, learn how to communicate all the information that you've gathered, and I think, and organize it in such a way. And I think a lot of them, fail to do that.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who started volunteering with us when I was at Baldwin Wallace University, and just as far as understanding and picking up all the X's and O's in the scheme, genius, could, has it like that, could see it, understand it. And I'd always tell him, I said, all right, now you need to learn how to become a phys ed teacher. Like that's what's going to make the difference for you. So as you look at that, and especially thinking of the young coaches, what would be your advice into being able to become a better teacher of the game?
Well, I think do it, get up and do it, get up on the board and do it and communicate to one another. I know it's hard for GAs because they don't have the opportunity sometimes to get in a room and install things and put it in, but they can still do it amongst each other and talk about it and understand the why. I think a lot of them don't understand the why. They know this is how we're going to block this or this play or this or pass diagram that we're going to put up. They know all that stuff, but they don't know the details of it, and they don't really know why. I've been around a lot of guys that, like we said, have all that information, but then when they look at film, they see a certain front, a certain coverage, a certain alignment, techniques or personnel. They don't really understand how to attack that and how to adjust. And I think that comes with just, again, studying the game, listening to the people that have done it, and trying to understand the why of everything that's going on there, not just what they're doing, why they're doing that.
Coach, when we look at your career and what you were able to do and leading an offense, you had years where you guys were one of the best in rushing, and you had years where you guys were the best in passing, whether that was completions or yards. For you, how important is it to have that balance? What creates balance in your mind?
Well, I think that's a great question. What creates balance is just being able to change up, to mix up what you're doing, and not just get in there and do one thing. And I say that, but there's a fine line because, again, you have to have a philosophy. And when we would go to training camp, whether I went to Bears or in college, we would install probably 80% of our offense, maybe more. And that was our bread and butter. That's what was going to carry us throughout the season. Yet you couldn't just line up the same formation and run the same plays over and over. You had to change it up, whether you changed it up by personnel, by formation, by motions, by shifts, all those different things. But the bottom line is when the ball snaps, you got to make sure your guys understand what to do thoroughly against every look, and they're comfortable with it. So I think that's the biggest thing is just being able to do that. Still have your philosophy and do that as the base of what you're doing, but you also have to have enough wrinkles each week to attack and show different things, and that's the critical part. That's where it can get difficult. I've always said as a coach, hey, we're going to go out, and I told the team, we're going to do what we do, and we're going to win with what we do. And then I would say, but to a point, like I said earlier, this is what we're going to do, but we're going to have different things. And I also learned a long time ago that it's about players, not about plays. So you talk about balance, and you're talking about sometimes, being able to be a better running team or a better passing team. Look at what you have. What do you have? What are your strengths? Who are your playmakers, in the skill positions? Put them in a position to make plays. If your strengths at the receivers or a running back that's a really good receiver, then utilize that within your system. If it's not that, then utilize what you can do. And the same with the offensive line. I see people all the time that like trying to do 7-step drops, releasing everybody and asking the lineman, to block without help. I'm a big fan of getting help in the protection schemes. And then you get mad at them because they give up a sack, or because the quarterback's getting pressure. And you look at that, you can get mad at them all you want. That guy is not capable of blocking that defensive end, so it's about players, not plays. And when I say players, I'm talking about your players, the guys you have, but also the players you're going against. And, you have a play or a concept or a scheme you like. Maybe you see a defense, a front, a coverage. And the next week you play a team that plays the exact same front and coverage. But you have a different game plan, or you're going to emphasize certain things a little different. They say, well, last week they played the same thing. How come we don't like this play this week? I said, well, look at the personnel. This kid, last week we could block that guy. We can't block that guy this week. Or we could beat that DB. We can't beat him. Mm-hmm. You change it that way. So again, studying the personnel, and I think that gets neglected by probably some young coaches at times too. They're so caught up about running plays and having different ones and everything else. But what can your guys do? Put them in a position to do it. And, who can you attack on the defense? That's one of the first things I would look at. Who in the defense can we go after? Who can we attack? And who do we have to help, get help to? And who do we have to avoid? When we played Deion Sanders. Everyone talks about it. We didn't throw his side of the field. We did not. I told the quarterback, you're not throwing over there. He's a left corner. We are not throwing to the left. We're throwing everything middle to right. And they laughed. I said, I'm not kidding. I said, we are not throwing at him. And, so whatever the case, you know what you can do. And especially up front, you better, those excellent pass rushers, you better get help to them. Do everything you can to avoid them, because they're going to beat you. But that's just an example.
Yes, Coach. To the casual fan who's watching a game on a Saturday or Sunday, they're going to see the coordinator standing there with this, what looks like this huge list of plays. But as you mentioned, it's about doing what you do and then having some tools. So, what is it for you is in finding that balance? Because you have to practice everything that you're going to do, right? So you're not going to have a bunch of stuff that you didn't work. But you can't leave your guys short either. You do have to build in those tools. And a lot, you and I were talking before we go, just understanding that at some point you're going to have to maybe have a scenario that you worked on and, it's maybe haven't faced it in a game yet. But for you, I guess finding that right mix of doing what you do with having enough in your game plan and enough to have those tools you need to maybe face some of those different scenarios.
Yeah, I think I think that's a great point. That's kind of what we talked about. You have to again, one of the things that was huge to me, you talk about analytics and everything. I think that's great. And I think studying yourself is just as important as studying your opponent. Self-scout was always huge to me. I had guys each week, whether we after the first game all the way through the season, telling me what our tendencies are and what we're doing, so you can change it up a little bit. So you can still, like we said, do what you do, but change it up and do things. Just like you study the defense to learn their tendencies. I want to know what our tendencies are, so we can change that up. That is, again, very important. I think it probably gets neglected sometimes. I think people talk about it, but I'm not sure, they really pay that much attention to it, But I think that's something that's critical that can help you change it up.
So, Coach, the self-scout, I believe, is an important tool, and I think you do have to take a look at some of those things and break tendencies in the way you would think about a game plan and think about a season. Were there things you, I guess, intentionally started to set up as tendencies and know that, hey, I'm developing some things here, but that's okay?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Again, you got to do what you do, and there are, you get those tendencies, but again, like you said, I think you used a great word, set it up. You can look at it and say, all right, we're going to do this. And we've got something in our mind that we're going to do down the road, at the right situation that ties into that comes right off of, something that we've been doing. And I think that's huge. All you have to do is break those tendencies, once in a while, and then all their stuff goes out the window. They can't tell the guys, hey, in this situation, or when he takes this split or this alignment or whatever, this is what they're going to do. You change it up once or twice, and they can't do that. But yeah, that's very important.
So the quarterback's a big part of this, and you spent many of your years coaching the quarterbacks. Quarterback preparation. What were the key things you would focus on to make sure you had a guy who was ready?
Well, I think the biggest thing is knowing what we do. Having a great understanding of what we do and why we do it, and how we want to attack the defense and why we want to attack them that way, and why this pass play might be good, the next week it might not, or this pass play might be good, but we're going to read it this way. Big progression guy. Everything is all right. Our progression is 1, 2, 3. We're going here, 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 based on what we see. In 1 week, number 1 is going to be the same. Number 2, 3 might change, or all of a sudden now we're going backside. You see this look, how they play. Now we're going to go backside. Will now become number 1. So those types of things. Just to change up, but teaching them to understand, the system. And I said, I don't want guys that can just get them on the board. Tell me why. And I would ask them. I would give them quizzes. I would give them tests. I'd love to get them on the board. I want to see them communicate it to me. That tells me how much they know. I said, all right, here's the look we're seeing. The base look we're going to see this week. Give me on the board without really knowing too much about the personnel. What plays do you like to beat this coverage? Or how do you want to protect? Protection is huge. I want the quarterbacks to learn the protection schemes. How are we going to protect this? Just based on, again, on the look, not talking too much personnel right now, just so they understood the why of what we're doing, where we want to go with it. That's the big thing. And then the mechanics, I'm a big believer in quarterback, like any position, but quarterback techniques, fundamentals. And to me, it's all about their eyes and their feet. I never messed a whole lot with the guy's throwing motion unless he had a huge wind up or something that really needed to be fixed. I did when I was a young coach. I tried to do that, and I was frustrated because they couldn't do it. And I finally realized you can't change, I'm not going to be able to change that much how this kid throws. But I can get his eyes and feet good. They're going to have a chance to be accurate. Accuracy, to me, is more important than arm strength. And your eyes and your feet are what going to give you the accuracy. Those are the biggest things that I worked on. And movement in the pocket, like everybody does now, sliding in the pocket, moving in the pocket, protecting the ball when you're doing it. But again, it goes back to the eyes and the feet. If those are good, the quarterback's gonna be good. In the throwing motion, just I kind of let them go because I like I said a minute ago, I realized I wasn't going to change it anyway. And if they're getting the ball out quick and they're accurate, why change it? And I've had guys throw every type of ball there is, every type of release, there is. And, seeing guys be effective doing all of them.
Coach, as you've stepped away from the game and you get to observe it from a different perspective now, what are some things you see happening where you really feel coaches need to maybe do a better job or learn a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a great question, but sometimes there's lots of things, but I think one of the biggest ones is managing the game. Whether it's clock management, all the different scenarios and different situations that come up during the course of a game it can be tough. I mean, if you're a head coach and you're also calling the offense, or you're a head coach, you're also calling the defense, and you're also trying to manage all that, when to take a timeout, when not to take a timeout, all the different things that go along with clock management, that's difficult. And I think that's where you see guys, something's going to give, and they're so in tune to calling the right defense or calling the right play offensively and getting the right personnel in and doing all that. It's hard, to keep track of everything else. I need a timeout here. My biggest thing is I would have somebody assigned to that. Somebody, that's all, not all they're doing, but that's a big part of what they're doing. You get in those situations in the game, they're helping with the clock management, because you see it in high school, you see it in college, you see it in the NFL, where games are lost because of poor clock management. And, it's happened to all of us. And, I think that part of it is huge, just managing the game part of it, and all the different situations that come up. I love to talk about situational football, and that's going to be a big thing. What I'm going to talk about at the clinic is all the different aspects that come up, whether it's red zone, third down, goal line, end of game type situations, whatever. There's got to be preparation that go into all that. And that's planned out and talked about prior to, because you get in the heat of the battle and all of a sudden that clock's running down and you try to, do it then, it's too late. You've got to have at least have talked about it and have a plan, and then it's much, much easier to adjust.
Coach, you shared a lot with us today, and I'm not going to dig too much further, because then I know we're taken away from your talk there at the Illinois High School Football Coaches Association Clinic. But the one question I have for you, 41 years and looking back and all the things you've done as a coach on and off the field, what's the one thing you'd really point to as giving your team the winning edge?
That's a good one. There's a lot of it, but I would think consistency, doing what's right consistently. And that's what I stress to the guys all the time, as far as off the field, always do what's right, treat people the right way and do all that. And then on the field is just being prepared and believing what we're doing. What you're doing, I think are, obviously some of the big things, no doubt about it. And being a team player, not being selfish, just being a team guy that's going to do whatever you can do to help the team win. Obviously, hard work and all those things, but just being a team guy and doing what's right and doing, staying with it, staying focused.
Well, Coach, we're excited to have you speaking at the Illinois High School Football Coaches Association Clinic. That's the first one of this offseason. Listeners, you can go to ihsfca.coachesclinic.com and be able to register there. Just a great lineup, over 120 speakers. Coach obviously is one of them, and I know you're going to dig into some of these topics, but I do appreciate you taking time, talking ball with us here today, and look forward to seeing you at the clinic as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, because it is going to be a tremendous clinic. There's positives with the pandemic and everything the way it is. There's a lot of positive come out of it. The relationships that families have developed by everyone being home and all that. There's so many positives, and one of the positives for this is getting so many speakers. Not relying on people to go into, Champaign or wherever the clinic is and doing that. you can do it online. And I looked at the lineup of speakers. I'm like, wow, this is impressive. It's going to be a hell of a clinic. So that's one of the positives that come from it. So I'm excited to be a part of it, honored to be asked, and excited to be a part of it. It's been a lot of years, 19 years coaching the state of Illinois. So it's a special place for me, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
Coach, thank you again. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, Keith. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for listening to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. Please, if you are enjoying the podcast, head over to iTunes or Spotify and click 5-star for a rate. If you have a minute, write a review. It really helps the podcast. Check out our new home for the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. That's at coachandcoordinator.com. And follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.